What's good? It's Woog. Jerome Boots Ennis defeated Stanionis by 6-round TKO to unify the IBF and WBA welterweight titles. Look, I picked, as well as most did, Jerome Boots Ennis to win this fight. He's been a talent that's been talked about for like the last, few years. And it was a matter of when he would be able to demonstrate how good people say he is. Like, is he the real deal? Well, give me an opponent that proves that. That's what this fight was supposed to represent. I thought that this fight was going to be more competitive than it was. Like, I was tempted to go Boots by stoppage, but I eventually said Boots by decision, unanimous decision. I didn't think it was going to be like a 115, 113 type of fight. Thought he was going to pull away by maybe a couple of rounds, but it was pretty damn clear early in this one that Stanionis was simply outmatched. Like, I didn't think Stanionis would be able to flow with Ennis in the way that Chookagian did in that rematch. I didn't think that Stanionis had that type of fluid style. But I thought that what works for Stanionis, the jab, the body work, I thought that he was going to have more success to where he could do something to keep some of Boots' punches in the holster. But Boots was just letting his hands go. I mean, he was jabbing to the body. And I mean, early in the fight, once I saw Stanionis get touched to the body, to the belly with some of those jabs, and to see Boots switching stances and then going to Stanionis' body with the backhand and then seeing Stanionis smile as a reaction to it, I thought, this is gonna be tough for Stanionis. And he did have some success. Third, fourth round, he started to hit Ennis a bit. I mean, Ennis does get hit, and he keeps his chin up there. And in some of those kind of high octane exchanges, yeah, there were some hooks and some pretty hard looking power punches from Stanionis that caught Ennis mid exchange. But he took those punches really well. And Stanionis, on the other hand, wasn't taking the punches nearly as well. Like, you started seeing some of the wear on his face, him starting to get busted up. Ennis able to hit through Stanionis' high guard and around the guard with the hooks, through the guard with the jabs and the straight backhands, whether it's a right or a left hand. But everything that goes into Boots Ennis' often overwhelming offensive arsenal, it was all working against Stanionis. He just seemed like he couldn't close the distance regularly enough to take Ennis's advantages away. Ennis just had his way from pretty much the opening round on. And I might have given Stanionis maybe one round. Let me know if you gave Stanionis more than one round. I gave him one round, but this was almost all Boots Ennis. And it wasn't just because he was nearly doubling Stanionis in landed power punches, but again, it was per punch, the reaction that you saw from one fighter versus the other. Stanionis was not handling this well, especially those body punches. I did say in my preview that I wouldn't be surprised if Stanionis takes a knee. And he technically didn't. I guess he did kind of take a knee, but I thought that he was more so just kind of crumbling because of those body shots. So yeah, he kind of took a knee, but I figured that if Ennis was going to stop Stanionis, that it would largely be due to the body attack. I know Stanionis is usually really good at the jab hand, getting turned over into a hook to the body. Stanionis loves to throw that jab, sometimes a double jab, and then with that same hand, going to the body with the hook. Stanionis is really good at that. But because of the reach, because of the movement, because of the angles, Ennis was just way more effective to Stanionis' body than Stanionis was to Ennis' body. It seemed like Stanionis had to pay such a price every time he wanted to go to Boots' body. And whenever Stanionis was inactive and not throwing punches, because look, when Stanionis would really let his hands go, again, he would land with decent regularity. But when he was just kind of tracking him down, defending himself, and not throwing punches, Boots was just teeing off on Stanionis. This did not go well at all for Stanionis. And again, I thought this was going to be way more competitive. This was Boots' most defining moment to date. This was finally him getting that opponent that mattered in the ring with him, and he showed out. And I figured that he would. Often with very talented fighters, you get ebbs and flows in terms of your fight over fight performance level. Sometimes somebody could look untouchable in one fight, and then they get brought back down to earth in their next fight for whatever reason. It could even be against a lesser opponent. They just don't look nearly as good as what they're capable of producing. And then you get the opposite of that. Sometimes you get a really lackluster or questionable, just a puzzling performance like we got from Ennis in that Chookagian rematch. And then the next fight against an even better, supposedly, right? An even better opponent we got a much better Boots Ennis. And style-wise, I just think that this was a bad matchup for Stanionis. So yeah, Boots Ennis shined. And the question is, does he go to 154 or does he try to unify more titles? He's got 2 out of the 4 at 147. I do think that this is a very low point in the division in terms of the depth of elite fighters in the division. I can't really think of a recent time where it's been worse, quite frankly. So the other 2 belt holders right now are Mario Barrios and Brian Norman Jr. And I feel like we know a lot more about where Barrios is. We know that he's got a ceiling. We saw him fight that draw with Abel Ramos. We saw him get beat by a post-prime Keith Thurman. We saw him get stopped by Gervonta Tank Davis at 140. And to Barrios' credit, he did drop Ugas and he beat Ugas. That's probably Barrios' best win. So we've seen enough of Barrios to know that he's a good fighter, but he is in no way a great fighter. And I just think that if they make that fight, it's almost a foregone conclusion that Boots Ennis takes Barrios' title and adds it to his unified status. Whereas I think there's a little bit more of a question with Brian Norman. We don't know how good he is or isn't. He looked really good in his last fight. He looked really good when he stopped Giovanni Santillan. But you know, I've seen a couple Brian Norman performances where I watch and I'm like, yeah, I just don't see it. I don't see it. So I think that Brian Norman is a little bit more of a mystery in terms of how good he might be. But the way that I see it, it's only academic. Like if either one of those guys sets up a fight with Boots Ennis, I think Boots is taking either one of their titles. So it's a question of, can Boots continue to make 147? Does he still want to unify more than just those 2 titles? If they do, I think that he beats either one of those guys. And the more exciting prospect, I think you would agree, is if he goes to 154, who would his inaugural fight be against? Like, would it be like against a Terrell Goucher? That seems to be one of those litmus tests at 154, who nobody really looks good against and separates themselves big time on the scorecards. But Goucher usually loses to like elite and near elite fighters. So, you know, I wouldn't begrudge Boots for sticking around and wanting to become, you know, a 3 belt holder or even undisputed. I mean, once you achieve that, regardless of who it's against, right? Regardless of who you collected those belts against, if you win all 4 belts in a division, that is a distinct accomplishment, a huge accolade that no one can take from you. So we'll see if he ends up sticking around at 147 or if he really challenges himself at 154, because man, the waters are very deep at 154. I don't think anybody runs the table at 154, to be honest with you. And I selfishly hope Ennis sooner than later hits 154 and sees how he does over there. But we'll see. Yeah, Boots Ennis, again, he was pretty remarkable in this performance against Stanionis. Again, if you thought Boots Ennis was going to win, did you think that it was going to be this lopsided and this clear that early in the fight that Stanionis is in deep trouble? Again, it didn't take long to discover that. But yeah, Ennis wins it in 6 rounds. Stanionis' corner stops it after the 6. Stanionis didn't really, I mean, you could see the disappointment in his face, but he didn't really protest his corner's call on that. So yeah, Boots Ennis is now a 2 belt holder at 147. Let's stay tuned to see what's next there. And I would at some point want to see him fight Virgil Ortiz Jr. You know, when Conor Benn, before they started like flirting with the Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn stuff. So before the PED positive test and all that, Conor Benn was kind of like the guy on the outside, as far as I saw it, just outside of Boots Ennis, Virgil Ortiz Jr., and Stanionis. I'm talking about the younger guys in the division. So everybody who wasn't named, Errol Spence Jr., Terrence Crawford, Sean Porter, Yordenis Ugas, outside of that crop, I looked at Boots and Virgil. I always have thought of that as kind of a 50-50-ish fight. And then on the outside of that, just on the outside of that, I had Stanionis as being just a notch below them. And then Conor Benn, maybe even just a notch below Stanionis. But, you know, whatever happens with Eubank versus Conor Benn, I hope he comes back to 147 and competes there. We'll see. Sometimes when people secure a huge payday like that, and let's not get it twisted, Conor Benn really might get wrecked against Chris Eubank Jr. This could go really bad for Conor Benn. And if Conor Benn pulls it off, then that's just embarrassing for Chris Eubank Jr. But yeah, I hope Conor Benn mixes it up with the other elite and near elite guys at 147. I had been wanting to see that before they started flirting with Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on the state of 147 and what do you want to see Boots do next? Do you want to see him stick around, unify more titles? Again, I don't think Barrios offers much in a fight against Boots. I mean, he's a tough dude. He hangs in there. He fights it out, and he might go the distance against Boots. But I don't see a scenario where Barrios beats Boots Ennis. I just don't see it. Brian Norman, again, it's a little bit more of a wild card, but I would still heavily favor Boots Ennis there. But yeah, would you rather him stick around, collect more belts at 147, or test himself at 154? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.